Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Scale Adventures. It's a podcast where we interview business leaders who have been building companies for a while and take you behind the scenes a little bit on their journey, the work that they do, and their future plans. Brandon, I want to welcome you to the podcast and thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for the invite.
Brandon Walton is the Cypress Learning Solutions leader, and he's been at it for a while. So, Brandon, I'm just going to ask you to just share a little bit about the work that you do, and then we can take it from there.
Cypress Learning is a registered Salesforce consulting partner. That means that we help businesses get the most out of their investment with their Salesforce licenses. At Cypress, what we have really identified as our strength and core competency is working with small businesses to empower their own teams to get the most out of their investments. We're a little bit different than how other partners may work. While we do work with developers and admins, we can offer those types of services. Our core strength, our core competency is working with small teams that already have an admin. There's a term that we call accidental admin. Maybe you're a business administrator, an operations manager, something like that. What we do at Cypress is work with those folks as well as sales teams so that they can be self-sufficient with the platform and they don't need to continue engaging with expensive consulting services long term. So what we really look to do is help teams understand Salesforce better, get the most out of what Salesforce is designed to do, and implement plans that they can then take on their own without the need of a third party like us.
Awesome. Got it. I think what would make this come alive for me and perhaps folks watching it is if you can tell us maybe a challenge someone came in with and what you did for them and what impact it had on the way they were operating.
Yeah, definitely. So I would say we see two different scenarios, very common that we end up coming in and helping Akshay. One of them is a small business that maybe looks to implement on their own. Maybe I'm a gold exchange in Oregon, for example, father-son operation. Son is a technically smart, very capable person. So the idea was the company, this gold exchange, purchase Salesforce and roll things out on their own. Now, what ends up happening, or what ended up happening in that case, is they want to start adding on some additional features so that they can scale their Sales Cloud account. Well, they ended up doing so many customizations, or business can end up doing so much customized work that they're unable to take advantage of any add-ons. And so what we've done for them, and I would say the first thing that we do a lot of is for self-implementers, we go in and help understand where they started going sideways. In their case, they're running a business, they're adding on software, they're moving as they go. No one taught them the appropriate way to use Salesforce. No one taught them the importance of starting out with a lead, and the lead becomes a contact. The contact has accounts and opportunities. And so what they ended up doing, and we see this a lot, they ended up just building a bunch of custom objects to support things that were already designed as part of the platform. So what we have to do is go in and retrain them, really start from scratch and say, okay, this is how the system is designed to work. And here's why. And what they were able to see right away is, okay, now they could add more of those marketing cloud features. They could leverage things like cases, things like CTI integration. So Ring Central or Call Rails, things like that, because it's working with the standard objects. So helping small businesses that may have started out to roll things out on their own, get a little stuck because they're not in Salesforce, multiple environments every single day, I would say is a huge part of what we do. The other part of what we do is working with teams, still small businesses, but teams that are a little larger. So it's not the mom and pop shop or the father-son, father-daughter type shop, but it is a larger sales team. And no one is taught that sales team how to use Salesforce appropriately. So you have an environment where you've got different team members doing things a different way, and that leads to inconsistencies inside of the CRM. And where a CRM adds a lot of value is when everyone's on the same page. That way, if you're a leader, if you're a manager or an owner or a stakeholder, you can trust the data that's in the system because everyone's adding it the same way and everyone understands why they're adding it a certain way. So one of the other things that we do is we'll work with teams that are a little bit larger. For example, different hotel groups that are out there, different e-commerce platforms. We work with real estate firms and construction firms and SaaS companies across the board at that higher, still small business where they've got maybe 10 salespeople that are all inside of a system using it in a different way. So what we do for those folks is it's very similar. Let's go back and review why the Salesforce architecture is designed the way that it is. Let's go through, and rather than morphing the system into something totally different, let's understand what their business objectives are and what makes things easy for their sales team to use, and modify the platform in a way that still aligns with the way that the platform is designed to be used. So you're not breaking anything and you can still take advantage of all that scaling stuff while finding those efficiencies for the sales members. And then the most important thing, it goes back to that education piece. Here's why you're going to do it this way. Here's the advantage. Here's the benefit. So now they've got a sales team that's all on the same page and they all know why. And they can start getting more consistent data. They can start adding on additional clouds, different additional features, different additional services, and they work versus, oh, we rolled out this one piece and we're stuck, or we don't know how to use it, or it's not working the right way, or we don't trust the data that's inside of our system.
Got it. One question just struck me as you were telling me this, which is it seems to be that there's an educational component, there's a domain component. At what point do clients feel like, hey, I need help? What's the early indicator that they need somebody like you?
That's a good question. We don't always know what goes on beforehand, but
Yeah.
some of those indicators that we do see where we get brought in quite regularly is the client is looking to add on some additional functionality. I think that becomes one of the moments. Dialing systems are huge because companies want to be able to track and quantify that inside of their CRM. So companies want to be able to understand how much activity is it taking for us to get a deal from a new lead to a closed one deal or a closed loss deal, what things are working and what things aren't working. And so I think once businesses really try to go in and understand the analytics behind what they're doing and what's working, and they realize they don't have it there, those are what prompt that call to us. Hey, what are we missing? How do we get this information out of here? We don't have reliable data. We need your help. Those are when we start getting pulled in, or something is broken in the system. Hey, this is no longer working anymore. Our users don't have access to the right fields they need to have access to. This report's broken. This functionality is broken. Those kinds of issues.
Got it. So it also is an interesting take that you've done. You've not just done the technology side, you've also got an educational component. Suppose somebody is talking to a pure tech shop versus talking to you. How should they be thinking about it?
Yeah. See, I'm happy you brought that up. My background before I was in the Salesforce ecosystem, I was always technical, but I was on sales team. So I was the guy at the dealership or on the sales floor that not only was I doing the selling stuff alongside my colleagues, but if they had a computer issue, they couldn't get the printer working, they wanted to put something on their MySpace page and couldn't figure it out, I was the guy. And I've always had that ability to translate technical jargon, technical speak, and what's going on technically to humans, right? Sales folks. And at that time, a lot of my peers were a lot older than me, maybe by 20, 30 years. And so being able to understand some new technology like Salesforce or Facebook or just even Craigslist, a big seller at one point, to older folks, that was just not in their sales vocabulary. And so when I was introduced to the Salesforce ecosystem, that was really my angle in the beginning, because I wasn't one of those kids that came straight from college, computer science degree, and understood technology really well. I was that person that was on the sales team that understood the technology. And I realized that there was a gap and there was a disconnect. And in small businesses, it's the exact same case, whether that's dealing with salespeople or whether that's dealing with just sales organizations in general. In most cases, your sales organization is not your engineering department. So you've got to be able to translate things in that translation. You've got to be able to translate the value. So we've had a lot of success in translating those technical steps into business value. And I think that's really what has been magical for us, or some of the magic that we're able to provide to our clients.
When they talk about phrase, it's not about software, it's about customer success. And I think you bringing that in is super powerful. So how does it actually work? Are you primarily the consulting layer and then you bring another company in to do the implementation, or how have you organized yourself?
Yeah. So to extend on that, when you're working with a development company, you need to be very clear in the instruction that you're providing developers. I've learned this the hard way. I've learned a lot from working with developers before I fully understand technically what's going on. And then as a customer, you end up being a little upset, right? Because you say, hey, build me Twitter 2.0. Oh man, Twitter's going through this stuff. You know what? I've got some business acumen. I want to work with the development team to build Twitter. But if you don't know everything that goes into that request and that demand, you're going to end up very upset or not getting what you want. So I think when you're working with development companies, and I think our clients, some of them get into this situation as well, where they go right into working with the developer. And the way that developers translate things, like an engineer, if you tell that developer what you want, they're going to build to that technical specification. They might not be thinking through what all the other business requirements are, what all the needs are going to be, or what else you might be looking to add down the road. They're going to build to that specification. So for a lot of companies that go right to a developer that's maybe taking things very literally or not understanding the full business picture, very talented developers doing their job. But if the description of the project isn't really clear, or that description is coming from a place where the requester isn't really fully understanding the platform, then that's where problems can live. So when it comes from implementing, our quick start process includes that learning, and we are doing alongside them. So we will do that work for them. So we can come in and do all the implementation. Where we draw our line in the sand is if they do need some actual custom development work. And then when that happens, we do have a network of partners that we've been working with for years. Many of them are folks I've been working with for maybe 10 years or longer, that they operate as their own separate entities. And then what we'll do is we'll make a recommendation. If you were to build a house, I might come in and be the framer of the house. But if you were to say, you know what, now we want to add this gas fireplace upstairs and an extra bathroom, I would say, Akshay, okay, here's some great plumbers that you can talk to. Here's some great electricians that you can talk to. When they come in and do the plumbing and the electric work, then I can go and build around. If you were to compare this to a house building process, we would be like the framers and maybe a structural engineer, where we can discuss, okay, you're going to need some support beams here, some support beams here. We can build that stuff for you. We can do the framing for you. But yeah, if you want to pull in the water, the electric, you're going to need to get a plumber. You're going to need an electrician for that. And we will work with clients to help them understand that. And I would say where we win and where it's a good project for us is if we could come out the other side with that client understanding deeper how implementing technology within their company works and understanding the different roles that the different players are going to play throughout their process as well.
Got it. I want to move to a slightly different topic, which is you've ended up with a very interesting model, little unorthodox. If you look back at your journey of building Cypress, what have been one or two of the things that have made the biggest difference to you all as a company and to you as a founder?
Yeah, I would say the biggest difference when we talk about, again, going back to the topic of the series, scale and scalability, is identifying what you are really good at. One, as an individual, as a leader, so I can teach a company. And two, once you define that, then you can find the right people who are going to be the right matches. From Cypress, when we went from let's take on any project we can to how do we grow and scale this thing out, it became identifying ways that we are getting very good at solving the same or similar problems over and over again. And that's very tough to do when you're just taking on any project, because Akshay might want something, Brandon might want something totally different. Then you've got another client who says, oh, we want to do Revenue Cloud. We want to do Experience Cloud. We want to do all these different things. So what we had to get really good at doing was saying no, saying this is what we're really good at. And this is what we're not really good at. Because what happens there as an owner and as a business is you can solve for 5, 10 things, right? If you say, okay, these are going to be the 10 things, and when we see one of these 10 things, we're going to have the people, processes, and the tools to resolve these problems and to really help people and do a really good job at these 10 things, versus saying, here's 100 things. And tomorrow someone might come and ask for the 101st thing or the 102nd thing and try to solve every problem, which I think it's very difficult to do, because as an owner, I'm always going to have to be there taking some of my expertise in a new way and training my existing team in a new way, where we still end up learning a lot, right? You still end up getting all these scenarios that you're not expecting. You'll still end up being surprised. But when it's under something that you can control and really call yourself, your business, a master of, right? You go at the 10,000 hours type thing. What is it that we can be really good at? Add value within this larger ecosystem. And we've seen a lot more success doing it that way. At Cypress, here's what we have found that we're really good at. And we built a team that can really deliver on training, implementing Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, the core selling process, the sales process. That helps us work with more customers, give them a better value because the client feels like they're working with someone who truly understands the space.
No, fantastic. And this is a pattern we've noticed with multiple founders, which is prior to the journey of scaling is focus, right? And unless you focus, it's very hard to make that happen. So I think that's an interesting point. Talk to us a little bit about the next 12 to 18 months. Where are you seeing the business going? What are some future aspirations for the company?
Yeah, definitely. I think where our business goes for the next 1 to 2 years, the direction that we take is really doubling down into what we're really good at. Success has really come from just doubling down into what we're really good at, because I think what ends up happening there is our client and our potential client, they're looking for folks who can help them with efficiencies. They're looking for experts in a specific space. So I think for us, we really double down on this is what we do. This is what we're good at. We're going to help your team make sure that you're getting the best use out of Salesforce, make sure that things are working correctly. If you have an issue with your sales process, we can help with that and we can fix things there. And then for stuff that exists outside of that core competency, continue relying on partners that we've worked with for a very long time who are great at that work. When a client does get to the point where they need a developer, they need to work with that development team, we can help them find someone who's going to fit in a good place. And we can provide reasons to why, because we're living in the world that we're really good at. So I would say for us, it's definitely doubling down on what our core competencies are, really focusing on building that efficiency and then building a team that can support what it is that we're doing.
I've got one last question around this one before we wrap up, which is when you look at the journey that you've been on, what are the inflection points or the learning points that have helped you get to where you've got to?
Yeah, I can even go back way before when I was selling a payment process, building people's websites, literally knocking on door to door. I would wake up every morning, like at 6 o'clock in the morning. I was living in downtown Seattle. I would go all the way down to Pioneer Square, down by where like the Seahawks and the Mariners play. And I would walk up First Avenue from down there all the way up Pike Place Market, knocking on every door, trying to win business, right? I would say one, being able to partner with a company like Salesforce is very useful because from that first inflection point, you go from, I'm going to knock at every door and they're either going to want a website or to be able to figure out how to take credit card or some kind of payment solution. But it was very vague, right? I'd go in there and I'd get stuck into a lot of sticky situations, especially at the time I couldn't put a team in front of. If I wrapped my mind around it, I'm going to figure it out because I'm the young and hungry guy.
Yeah.
Totally not scalable. Then you evolve into realizing, okay, there's this technology in my world, Salesforce and Pardot or Salesforce Marketing Cloud. It's a similarity. Now I can go after the similarity. So I would say finding similarities in what you're doing over and over again, then you can start identifying what it is that is repeatable. And by repeatable, you find things that, okay, are they qualified customers? So you can find more qualified customers if they're all at least using the platform that you're going to be an expert in versus, oh, you got a website, you take a credit card. Maybe I can help you here, help you there. Very difficult to do. But if everyone's on Salesforce, now you can build a team around those competencies. You can say, okay, everyone's using Salesforce and we're going to focus on this part because what we've noticed after working with a lot of different businesses is a lot of folks have this kind of a problem. And now once you start getting into that problem, you'll find that there's plenty of different directions that it can go from there. There's still plenty of problems that exist within those problems, but at least now what you've got and what we've got at Cypress is a consistent market that we can go after, a consistent market that we can share our services with, that we can sell into, that we can work with, and that we can train and build a team around. And if you're not in technology, right, it might be something totally different. If you're a mechanic, you can go from saying, yeah, we're going to work on every car under the sun. We're going to say, we're going to be a BMW shop. We're going to focus on electronic vehicles or something like that. Starting out very broad. And I would say each inflection point, each pivotal change point where we've made a pivot and a very important decision has always came behind, all right, if we take a look at everything that we're doing, what's working really well, what's replicatable, and what seems to still be a large enough market for us to have enough opportunity to grow a business, but really minimize and mitigate risk because we can hire people with a very specific skill set versus we need someone who can do everything all the time.
As I listen to you, one of the things that I've noticed among founders is people that have clarity of thinking, they repeat key ideas in different ways. You've talked about core competence, you've talked about focus, you've talked about 10,000 hours, you've talked about building a network of other people who are experts at it, figuring out what's working and drilling down. And all of these are versions of the same core insight. which is to own the right to build a company that scales is you got to focus and you got to do what you do best at an individual level, at a team level, at a company level. I think that was my big takeaway, Brandon. And I just want to thank you for doing this podcast with me.
Thanks, Akshay.